Now we have other factors. These are elements that kind of cross the line between composition and other things, just sort of other things to consider. So we start with articulation. Articulation in sculpture is not movement. Rather, it's how the artist moves the eye from one element to another. So in terms of this sculpture and articulation, you might talk about where your eye starts and where it seems to move throughout the piece. And oftentimes this can be difficult to get used to as a student looking at a piece for the first time. It's often helpful to look at a lot of pieces and have someone kind of walk you through the directions that you're going to start and where you're going, because a lot of articulation is, again, subconscious. Your eye's simply moving around and taking in that material without you really realizing that it's happening. So it takes kind of slowing down and really looking at the piece and working out those directions to discuss the articulation, how the piece is moving your eye around it, or how the artist is moving your eye around the piece. Then we have focal area. Now this is the same as in two-dimensional, with the addition of movement. Now the focal area is where we're supposed to look in a piece. With a human form, for example, it's almost always sort of center of mass. We're going to start there and move on, or we start with a face. Just sort of depends on the composition. In the case of the piece on the left, the focal area is, of course, the alcohol at the bottom, which is, well, going to be the focal area whether there's a sculpture there or not. But that funnel shape draws our eye down into that one position. Now, there is one specific rule to focal area. If there's anything that moves, it will automatically be the focal area. The reason is, as humans, we are hardwired to see movement. Think about it. Evolutionarily speaking, if you're walking through the grasslands in the savanna of Africa or wherever, and something moves in the grass, that's an immediate indicator that something is there and you need to pay attention, because it might be a squirrel, and squirrels are cute, or it might be a saber-toothed tiger, which is kind of tricky. We don't like saber-toothed tigers, which is why we don't like cats. So, if it moves, it will always be the center of attention or the focal area. Then we have ephemeral art. This is art that is designed to be transitory. This is art that is designed to make a statement and cease to exist. There's a lot of reasons for this, and we'll get into some of them later in the semester. But these are often pieces of art created in nature, such as stacking rocks. No one expects that those rocks are going to be there forever. No one expects that they're going to be there even a week from now. Things will knock them over. But we still do it because we're drawn to that sense of beauty. And we see this a lot with sculpture. These are pieces that are not meant to be preserved, and oftentimes that's a difficult idea for a Western audience to kind of wrap their head around, because we have this idea of art, that art should somehow be permanent or be preserved, which is really against the ideas of ephemeral art. We also generally see ephemeral art tied to environmentalism or environmental art, which again we will deal with later in the semester. Then we have found art. Now these are objects that become art not because the artist created it, but rather because the artist chose it from its original setting. In this case, this is a urinal that was chosen by Duchamp to be a piece of art in a gallery. And there's a lot more to it. We'll cover it a little bit more later in the semester, but this is basically an artist coming across a piece and saying, I'm an artist, I understand art, I have chosen to consider this piece art, and therefore it is now art. But because the artist didn't create it, it is known as found art.